Okay guys, I am going to go over on video how to dart a vessel to alter the form. Okay, we're going to be making these with clay when we are back in the classroom someday. But for now, I'm going to go over the technicalities of it and show you how to do this and what it will look like with clay. And I'll give you a few rules like wall thickness and things like that, because we'll start off with slabs. But you are going to be designing this in your sketchbooks while we're out of school. And then everyone that was present on Thursday got some 18 by 24 paper and also a card with some masking tape. So I'm going to show you how you can make a maquette to plan out your piece, and then also the art that's going to go on the outside of your vessels, and then the maquette plus your sketchbook planning will be graded assignments. So a maquette is basically a 3D model, like a mock-up. You can use maquettes to build the form and then take it back apart and use it as a template, but it also in this case will just help with the process. Even though paper's a little bit different of a material for what we're doing, it's a good idea just to kind of wrap your brain around what your vessels might look like. So what we're going to be doing is we'll be practicing with paper, but eventually with clay. We'll be making cylinders of different sizes, and I'll kind of go over requirements as far as height and width in a little bit. But I've got some that I'm going to show you on video what it looks like when you cut the darts out to alter the form. But to kind of get us going in the right direction, over on the board, I've got a few images, and I'll have this on the presentation too, that are darted vessels. So these all happen to be pictures of some shape or size. This is a larger, more slender pitcher that would be good for water or just beverages that you're pouring at dinner. These are more like gravy boat size, but you would have a wider cylinder to start with, but shorter. And then this one's somewhere in the middle with a additional spout that's added, again from a slab. So you'll have some options to add things that aren't necessarily all required. I wouldn't add all of these things, but an additional foot to the bottom of your vessel, a handle, whether you make it with a mold or you pull your handle, and also a spout like this if you decide you want to make your piece a pitcher. You also have the option of creating a darted vase. Okay, so the form isn't so much set in stone, but I would start playing with the idea and folding, taping, cutting paper, drawing out ideas, and then see what it is that you want to make, because you might have an idea to start with, and then as we know, things always change, especially when you're working with 3D materials. So first thing I want to do is talk about darts, okay? And y'all are just gonna have to bear with the fact that half the time I'm looking at my laptop and not the camera. All right, so I've got some darts right here. I'll hold in front of me because you can probably see them. And darts are just shapes that you're using as a template. You put on the cylinder, okay, and I'll grab one of these to use as an example. Like this is the most simple dart, just a triangular dart, okay? So from the top edge of my vessel, I can lay this template on here and see how far down do I want the dart to go and cut this shape out of the clay cylinder, and then you're gonna be left with a gap. So in this case, I would be left with a triangular gap like that. Now if I take my needle tool and I cut this shape out and I push the walls together, I'm going to have altered the form. Okay, so depending on what you want your piece to look like, you might want a different dart. So here's a couple. I don't have all of them, and I would encourage you to hop on the internet and do some research. There's all different types of shapes you can create out of darts, and they're going to end up with a different form. So this is the most simple one, a triangular dart. If you take it from the top, you're going to bring the walls of the vessel in to create more of like a top of a vase. If you take it from the bottom, you're going to take a straight cylindrical form, and you're going to start to bring the sides in to a more narrow foot. And I'll show you what that looks like later. A sheild dart, so it has a curved edge, so you're going to end up having a curved profile where the walls come together. This is a leaf dart, shaped somewhat like a leaf, okay? Again, and you'll get curved profiles for that. This one is a kite, so they're all kind of named after whatever they look like. And then this one is an elongated triangular dart. So all of these are going to have a different look to them when you cut them out of the clay, and we're going to go over that next. So up on the board behind me, and again, if this is hard to see, I'll have it on the Google slide presentation that this video is embedded in, so that you can go look at that picture just by itself. So what I have going on right here are some examples of what this would look like if you cut it out. So this row right here, these are from the front edge. If you're looking at the front side and you're holding it like I was just holding the clay cylinder a second ago, and I placed my dart here, okay? then this is what it would look like from the side. All right, you have the option. You don't have to use the same exact shape dart on both sides of the vessel. You can make a really funky vessel, which is what I'd like you to kind of experiment with, by using different shapes on the same form, and I'll show you some examples in a little bit. But if I did the kite dart, this is what it would look like from the front, where I put the little kite shaped paper on my clay, and then if I turn it to the side, I could have it just on the side. So this is like half of my kite. It's like if I took this form and rotated it, okay? So if I just did one side, it would look like this once I cut that form out and then push the walls together. If I do it on both sides and cut them out, okay, it would look like this one, all right? So you could have a symmetrical vessel when you're done, and you might cut a dart out of 2 sides or out of 4 sides of your form, just depending on how wide or tall your cylinder is. But that's kind of how this works, just to explain this chart that I made. So triangular dart, this is from the front edge. If I rotate it and turn it to the side, this would be me cutting it out of both sides of the vessel. And then over here, if I just cut the triangle off of one side, it would bring the wall slanted in on this side. This could be a really cool top to a picture if I added a spout on that side. So you could kind of take the clay off of this side and then move it over there, make an incision and move it over here, and it would make the spout come out. I'll show you what that would look like with orange. If I take the clay from over here and move it over here, then you would have a spout and make a picture, okay? And then down on the bottom for your leaf dart, didn't have my little shape on here. You can make these any size. I have a little template that I'm going to upload to It's Learning, and I think it'll be linked in the presentation because I like to put all the stuff in the same place. So down here on the bottom, a leaf dart, sometimes you can put these just down in the middle of the wall. It doesn't have to be up at the top, okay? It just depends on where you want the form to be altered. But this again, same example, cutting a leaf out of both sides of the cylinder, and then over here on the end, you can see if I did that, here's the curved half of the leaf on the left and on the right. If I do it on both sides, it will look like this form in black. If I do it on one side, I would get a dramatic curve on the profile of this side of the vessel, and then this would just stay the same. So here's a bunch of the most commonly used dart shapes. The size of the shape is going to be based on what you want the form to look like. So 9 times out of 10 when I'm darting a vessel, I'll start off with a sketched plan for what shape and size I think I want my dart to be, and then I'll cut it off of my cylinder, and then if it wasn't enough or maybe it was too much, I might go back and alter the form. When you're actually working with clay, and really with paper too, since you took home like 2 sheets of the large paper, it's best to start off with small dart shapes and then cut off a little bit more if you feel like it wasn't dynamic enough, versus the opposite end of that, because once your paper's cut, you're going to have to tape it back together if you want to add some paper back onto it. Same thing with clay. You would have to sit there and blend some coils back on to extend your walls out. So these are just all examples of doing this to your form. That's what it would look like, okay? What I want you guys to do is take this idea of creating some really basic darted shapes to create some dynamic forms, and I want you guys to pick 3 to 4 different darted shapes to create a dynamic form on your cylinder, okay? So first off, we're going to start off with a sketch. So you're just going to sketch some cylinders in your sketchbook, and I want you to go through the process that I'm about to go through. And I'm going to do this with blue, if it works. Yes, it does. Okay. So we're planning on probably either a vase or a pitcher. You're going to have on your finished pieces, you're going to have a taller form. I'll kind of show you what I've already mocked up with clay so you can kind of see what we're messing with here. I've got some small cylinders that I'm going to show just small basic darted forms, but this is the one that I'm using for what will eventually be your final piece that you make when we're back and we're actually working with clay again. So it's a taller, larger form than the small ones that I'm using as an example today. But you want to draw your cylinder kind of like where we're going. So basically like a 12 by 18, somewhere around there, slab of clay, okay? And you'll also be working with that size with your paper. So say we're doing a pitcher, okay? I want you to look at your options over here for what kind of dart shapes and sizes you want to use, and then you want to sketch those on your form. For both of these, I'm going to be sketching like a side view so you can see from the edge. So I might want to do a triangular dart from the foot over here, okay? So this would be, that'd be like half of it, all right, because I'm looking from the side. And then I think I want to do a shield, okay, because I want to take away some of this. I want this to be the side where the handle's going to go. If I'm going to add a handle over here, I want to place where my hand is going to fit the hole of the handle. So I'm going to take, just based on the size, that's going to be half of my shield, okay? And then if I want to do the pinched triangle, was the only one I didn't make in paper, but that's just going to be a triangle that then has like inverted curves, all right, like bird wings. So if I took that right here, okay, so I've got my basic cylinder right there. I've got a triangle dart, I've got a pinched triangle dart, and I have a shield dart right there. So what that would look like for my vessel with just those three is if I'm cutting away this wall here, okay, I'm cutting away this side of the foot, okay, that'll eventually be the foot, and then I'm going to cut away this triangle. I've used 3 darts so far, okay. I've got a triangle, a shield, and a pinched triangle, okay. So then this clay is gone, this clay is gone, this clay is gone. All right. So my vessel is something like that. Okay. So now I've got a form that I altered from a cylinder, and I'm getting something that's a little more interesting. So if I want this to be a picture instead, I know that I need to make some common sense decisions, like the foot down here needs to still be wide enough based on the height of the vessel and the weight of the vessel, because I'll end up adding a handle and a spout, where it's not going to tip over. So you want to think about stuff like this, and that's why a paper maquette is a really good idea, because you'll be able to see, you'll have a 3D form in front of you even though it's not clay, and you can see that if maybe you cut a little bit too much away with the pinched triangle and the triangular dart, and your picture might be a little bit tippy, okay, and off balance. So for this to be a picture, I've got 2 options, and I'll try to add some videos on its learning that you can go look for, but please take this as an opportunity knowing that you're not an intro art level student. Go to YouTube, it's an excellent resource, and there are already a ton of videos all over the internet on how to pull a spout on a cylindrical vessel, whether you built it from slabs or you threw it on the wheel. There's already a ton of videos on how to pull a handle that's already attached to your form. So you can go look up stuff like that and kind of have, you can't practice it obviously right now, but you can look it up and get some resources for it. So if I'm going to pull a handle for a picture, because a nice like elegant handle would be nice right here, I might end up having a handle attached that works with my form, just like that, okay? So that's going to be where my hand can wrap around and grab the handle to hold the vessel. And then I might roll out a piece of clay, or I might even be able to use a piece that I cut from a dart. And then I would create an incision right here, okay, where I can make a cut and then take the slab and open it up. And then I can insert this extra piece here. So that'll end up changing the opening up here to be more like this. Okay, then I've got my spout, my handle, and a vessel that's a lot more elegant than just having a cylinder. Okay, so a picture is an option. There's a few things that I put down here at the bottom, and they'll be on the presentation too, but you can add whatever you want to this. Okay, I would like for you to do 2 to 3 decorative techniques. And it could be additive or obviously we're doing subtractive, but it could be additive, like adding the spout and the handle. But I'm talking about like decorative techniques too. So you could be doing slip trail designs. That's the middle picture that's up on the board that'll also be on the slideshow. Those are all slip trail designs. You could be doing applique and using sprig molds. You could be doing stenciling. You could be painting with underglazes. You could layer glazes. So any of the things that we've already learned about, you could be using any of that stuff on your vessel. Now, if you wanted to make a vase instead, that's absolutely fine as well. You can totally make a vase. We just want to stick to the sizes, and I'll go over that in a second when I get the paper out. But same idea. So say I want to do kite on this side, and then maybe a triangular dart here. Maybe, I want you to play, I really don't know if this is going to look all that great, but we're just going to play just with some variety. Okay. And there's 2 leaf darts over on that side, and then I might do another triangular dart over here. Okay. So this would be like a funkier vase. I think that the worst thing ever is to feel like everything always has to be perfectly symmetrical. Typically artists and ceramicists have a style that they stick to, but this is your time to kind of explore and try some fun stuff and see if you like it or not. So again, if I'm cutting away, this is a pretty big kite dart, but that would give me a line like this for the profile if I cut that clay away. Okay, and then over here, if I cut this triangular dart away from the bottom of the cylinder, I'm going to get a pretty basic like form that you might get from like a coil pot or something like that. But over here, if I take the leaf, and remember these are like half of the overall shape, if I take that leaf away, and this leaf away, and then that triangular dart, okay, then I'm going to get rid of this clay, that clay, and this clay. So then I've got this like funky form, which I'm not feeling right now, but I could go into this and refine it some and get rid of some of the points and maybe make this curved over here as well. And I have something to play with. So something that this could look good on if you are doing a form that has maybe some hand painting with underglaze or whatever, and you're going to have faces on it or something like that, and this will make more sense when we go over our next assignment too, combining this with this idea, then this could become part of the profile of a face or something like that. So you could play with that. This is super lame up here for the top opening, the mouth, so I'd probably do something up there. You could even cut some of this from the top and get rid of that super basic mouth up there, and then have something that's more like this, okay? And you can cut negative spaces away from this. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. So basically, to kind of sum up this again up here on the board before I move this away, you're using basic shapes that you're cutting away from some part of your cylinder that you've already created, and then you're bringing the walls in to close that hole, close the gap, and make it a solid form again. So I'm going to show you on some cylinders over here what this might look like. So I have, yesterday was our early release day, and I stayed after and made some quick ceramic forms so I could show this as an example. So I've got all these things that you're not going to have at home, which is why you're doing this in paper. And I have rolled out a slab of clay. Your clay, when we make these actually out of clay and not with paper, should be a minimum of 3/8 of an inch thick, or maybe even a 1/2 inch thick. And you want it to be a soft leather hard. If you try to do this out of clay that's still feeling, for lack of a better word, squishy or floppy, then it's just going to fall and your closures aren't going to be nice and have good craftsmanship. Okay. So what I did is I rolled out my slabs, I laid them down on drawing paper, and I left them like that overnight. I did drape a bag over the top, but I left it to firm up. And especially with you guys having short class periods, that's probably going to be what you want to do as well. So you could work on your sketching aspect while you're letting your clay firm up a little bit. But at this point, I could still indent in the clay or score the clay or cut the clay, and it would be super easy. But if I hold it like this, it's holding its form. Okay, so a soft leather hard. So what you're going to do, I've got all of these little dart patterns. I've got these on It's Learning. I made a copy that you can print, and you're welcome to use any of these darts, but you can also make your own darts. So the way that I made these, and I would encourage you to try to make your own custom ones, I just used a ruler and I gave myself a line of symmetry first, okay, a straight edge. And I started these at the edge of the paper, which I knew was also perfectly straight. Then I just decided, okay, I want this to be, I don't know, I've got a ruler right here, so let's just look. The length of this is going to be almost 3 inches, okay, for the height of the triangle, all right? And then I just took from the edges from here to here. I decided, all right, this is going to be exactly 3 this way. And I made those little marks on my paper, and then I just measured it out. You shouldn't have a triangle that's wider on one side and not as wide on the other side, Okay, you want to try to start off with as perfect of shapes as you can possibly create. And these little dotted lines are just places where I could make a smaller dart if I cut it at that point. Like if I put this on the wall and I only did it there, I could have a smaller dart here, or I could use it at that one, or I could use it at this one. So that way if you alter it, you've got a mark to go by and you're not just guessing. Okay, and that's the same for pretty much all of these. So you can use the ones that I already made, or you could print that off at home if you have a printer. You could even take a piece of printer paper on your computer screen and kind of copy it through if your printer's not working or you don't have one, and you can make copies that way. You can also just sketch them out yourself and make your own. All right, so let's start off with the triangular one, because that's probably the most simple one and the one that people probably would use the most. Okay, so right now I'm just doing this with hollow cylinders because these are I'm just going to keep. I'll fire them and I'll use them as teaching models. They're not going to become anything, but obviously if you were creating a form that you were going to create into a vessel, you would eventually have a foot. When you first start creating one of these, you should not have a base on your piece, because you're going to be altering the top and the bottom. And if you have a base, it creates it where you have to alter the bottom and you have to alter the foot, which would mean you have to get rid of it anyways. So you should be starting with a hollow cylinder like this. Okay, so we're just going to assume that I want to use this whole dart. So I'm going to have the top edge of my dart on the top edge of the clay. And if your clay is just a little bit sticky, that's helpful because you can just put these up against the clay like this. Eventually, I'll make some laminated forms. So first I'm going to take my tool, and this is a clay tool. I've got it on the white shelf in the back room, in the back of the room. And it's sort of like a needle tool. There's a sculpting tool on one side. The other side looks sort of like an X-Acto knife. It's not that sharp, but it's good for cutting clay with a straight edge. So I'm going to take this, and I'm not cutting through the clay. I'm just making a guideline with the paper, and now I've got that dart, okay, just kind of etched on the outside of my clay. All right. When you cut this out, this is going to be the piece that we don't keep. All right, obviously we're going to keep the vessel and we're going to get rid of this piece here, but I'm going to end up taking this wall and pushing them together. So this is where you want to pay attention to what you're doing. Instead of taking my needle tool and just cutting at a straight angle and having a flat wall and a flat wall pushed together and hoping they hold, it could work, all right, but you can make it stronger if you cut them at an angle. All right, so you're going to take your tool, I'll tip it up so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Instead of like this, I'm cutting at an angle like this. Okay, and I'm going to follow my guideline. So I'm cutting down to the bottom point, and then when I go to the other side, I'm not changing angles. I'm keeping it the same way because I'm going to push these together. So it's still angled this way, and I'm cutting down to the center point. Okay, so now this is my excess that I remove, this little triangular piece that matches my dart, and then I have the surface to push together. Okay, your clay should be firm enough where when you cut it, it's still holding up like this. If your walls start slumping over, it's not a soft leather hard, and you need to go firm up your clay or let it sit overnight again before you start trying to manipulate it. So at this point, anytime we're going to attach pieces of clay together, you always want a texture, so you want to use your scoring tool and rough up the two parts that are going to be pushed together, and then instead of slip, we use a little bit of vinegar water. Slip is fine too. It's just what we do in our classroom. Okay, so I've got vinegar water on both parts, and I have texture on both parts. I'm going to take both walls, and I know that I'm bringing the walls in from my sketch that I've already planned and my paper maquette that I already have. So I'm gently taking the clay, and I'm bringing the two walls together like this. And you just take your hands, you're manipulating the clay, and you're trying to push those two walls together. Okay, it's going to create almost sort of like a corner, like a subtle corner where the walls come together like this. So now it looks like this from the side, looks like this from the front, almost sort of like bird beakish a little bit. This could be a cool form for a little cup too if you made this a little bit smaller. Okay, so then at this point you are going to be kind of refining and closing that edge, because if you don't, it's going to want to pop back open there. We know that the clay shrinks a little bit as it dries. It shrinks a little bit more when it's fired. So I like to use a rib, and then also you can just use your fingers or your modeling tool when you get to that point. And we're going to make it look nice and smooth, but we also want to make sure we're taking clay from one side and smoothing it over to the other. On the inside, it might be easier to use your finger at first to go across, bridge the gap, And because they're hollow, you can get into the wider part on the bottom, at least right now you can. And you can smooth from one side to the other. So we shouldn't be able to see where the cut was. Okay. Okay. So this one was a simple triangular dart, okay, and it gives us that side, and then this. So dynamic, it could have a handle here. You could add a slab that's cut like a little with a filigree and have holes cut through it, a decorative element there, or it could help you create something functional. And you always have the choice too, like in a lot of these darts, depending on how many you do, you could leave the top circular, or you could start to shape it. Like this would be really nice up at the top to sort of have a teardrop sort of shape, like that shape, and it kind of goes with the fact that we've darted this one side, okay? So that sort of opening now, changing it, or even an oval, all right? So that's gonna be with this dart, okay? Taking that off of a cylinder, cutting it out, pushing it back together, and it gives you this form, all right? So that's number one. Move that one to the side. Okay. Cylinder number two. Let's do a kite. All right. So this is my kite. All right. You can make these at the center point. You can make it wider, and then your walls are going to come in more. You can make the bottom part of the kite shorter, and it would be a little more subtle. Your size of your darts is just going to be totally based on what you want it to look like and the size of your cylinder. Okay, so same process. I'm going to take my cutting tool and I'll use my template to trace onto my form. Always trace it onto the clay first. Don't try to cut around the template, because if you make mistakes or you step back and you're like, okay, that's too much, I don't want to cut that much off, you can still smooth this away and then change your form. So that's our kite. This is our piece that we're not keeping, all right? We're keeping the form, we're cutting out the shape. So then I'm going to take my tool and cut out the dart. And if you have another place on your vessel where you can use the piece that you cut out, like if it's big enough where you could use it as a spout or whatever, or to create feet, then keep it. Otherwise, roll it back up, throw it in the recycling bin, and we'll use it for something else. Okay, so here's my kite shape that I've got cut out of my cylinder. Same process. This one's a little harder to get into, but you'll do scored marks everywhere where you're going to push the clay together. Like that. And then some vinegar water. Okay. And then same idea. I'm just doing one dart on all of these, but I could do this on both sides, or I could do it in 4 places. So I'm taking the clay, I'm pushing in. The widest point is going to move in the most, and the points that aren't as wide are going to extend back out. And so if you get the right kind of kite shape, it starts to create a vessel that already has like a built-in spout like this. So depending on what angle you have for the top part of the kite, how far it comes in, and how long the bottom of the kite is, you'll get a different profile here. You could have one that has a pinched triangle that would curve out more here, and you'd have more of a curved throat to the top part of the spout. You could also just get rid of this part if you wanted to. You'd have more of a triangular dart, but you have all these choices. And I think when you start playing with it, you start to see like what it would look like were you to make a different shaped dart or a different sized dart. So same idea. We're going to refine this a little bit, push the walls together. Same on the inside. And if you're ever doing this on a pretty small vessel, it helps to have one of the wood modeling tools where you can kind of get into the small spaces that are hard to get with your rib or your hand. and from the bottom. Okay, so now we've got this type of form on one side, and this kind of gives you an idea if this was the top of a larger vessel. If you cut a leaf out of this side, you'd start getting a dynamic form, or just any dart that you want to use. Okay, and you could take your hand and, like, say you want to have a spout. This would be a good way to have it already built in without adding a slab, but you obviously always have that choice too. You can take this clay and add a little bit more moisture back to it, not too much, and use your finger to stretch the clay, get a little more elasticity, and use your hand to support it, and to start give you a more of like an elegant curved spout. If you don't want that, you could always trim it off, but you have the choice to manipulate your form however you would wish to. This would, if this is the top of a vase, this could be really cool to do this on a couple different sides, and then maybe have a place where you could make ceramic beads or glass beads or whatever and have droplets hang from, or you could have a place where wire attaches or whatever. So you have a lot of creative things that you can do with making a wall on your form jut out like that. So again, this one was a kite dart. Okay, this template, that clay gone, and now a plain cylinder looks like that. Okay, that was number 2. Next cylinder. I know you guys all have popcorn popped and you're just riveted right now. I'm just so ready to make a darted vessel. Okay, let's try this one, a leaf dart. Okay, you can have this up at the top. If the top point of the leaf were off of it, it would be basically a shield. Okay, but you could make a leaf that's like this one and has the top also, and it's wider, and the walls are going to push in more. The more narrow the leaf is from left to right, the less the walls are going to push in, so the less dynamic it'll be. But we'll put one down here in the side. If you've ever seen those funky mugs that have the handle on the outside, but the wall of the mug is like pushed in and indented for a place for your hand to fit, this is how you can do that. So same process. Go a little faster since you're familiar with this already. Taking our tool, tracing the shape first, make sure it's where we want it. Okay, and that's where I want to have that. So I'm leaving some clay at the top, and I'm leaving some clay at the bottom, and I'm going to just use my tool to cut the shape out of the form in the middle. So now I've got like that, okay? A little bit of clay at the bottom, a little bit of clay at the top, all right? Same as the last two, score marks on the clay. And then we're still gonna put the vinegar water on and both sides, okay? And then same idea. The wider the walls are, the more you need to gently push the walls together, okay, a little bit at a time. And if you get any cracking from the clay, don't worry about it because you're going to smooth all of this stuff out. And you're going to gently start to just make small changes at a time. Don't just try to force it in one push, or your clay can crack since we are using a soft leather hard. All right. So pushing the walls together like that. Okay, so now I have a form like this, okay? So we've got this area removed, and now I've altered my form like this. So this could become really cool, a cool place for me to attach my handle to the top and the bottom, and then have a place to hold. This would be a really giant, this is all the coffee that I need for at least maybe like the first and second class of the day, okay? And then we're going to have to get a refill, all right? But this is where you could hold your handle here, and it gives you something cooler than just like a regular, typical coffee cup form, okay? So same idea to finish this off. You would push your clay together, shouldn't have any holes, And then you're going to refine your form, because we know at this point, or at least I hope you know if you've been awake in class, that refining your forms and the craftsmanship that goes into finishing it can make or break your project. You can follow all the directions and have a darted form, and it looks sort of like a picture, sort of, kinda, but it's rough and the craftsmanship's not there, and you've got little bits of clay that weren't smoothed out, and then those are hard and could even cut you if when it's fired and glazed, and that makes all the difference in your project. So I'm going to take my soft sponge, refine this. These are really good for sculptural things too. So like, not just for like a functional project, you could totally use this. This is what we're doing right now, is making something functional and decorative. But for sculptural slab building, these are good techniques to use to create your form. So I know how much everyone loves coiling. This is a good option too, if that's not how you like to live your life, building everything out of coils. Slabs are quick once you have it rolled out and they're firmed up, and then you can manipulate them very easily by using darts. So we're smoothing all that out. And I've got all the gaps filled on the outside. Fix the rough spots on the outside. Okay, and here's another interesting form. Okay, so this one was the leaf dart, cutting this shape out, and now I get this really dramatic curve. You can see if the leaf was a little more shallow, I'd have less of an indent in it. If it was much wider than this, it would really go in and back out. So you'd want to do something cool in here. This could be neat to have like a hole drilled in the top and the bottom, and have like some kiln wire in between. You could have like ceramic beads stacked on it, like totem style, or glass beads or whatever. You could get super extra with this, and y'all know how I love that. Okay, so that's the third. And I only made 4, but I might try to just do both of these last 2 darts. And remember, I did not make a paper, a pinched dart, but that's just as simple as taking the triangular dart, this one, and instead of the line being straight on the sides, a straight angle, you would do a curved one instead. So if I took the sheild dart and I kind of cut away this part of the paper, you would get a totally different look, all right? So we will do the ones we haven't done on this one. So we'll try with the sheild, okay? And remember too, with all of these, I've been showing you just like the way that I cut them out, but this could become the foot, all right? So this could be the foot of this vessel, and then I could have like a totally different vessel stacked on top of this, like this. Okay, I don't even know if you can see that. Let's push it back. All right, so this is 2 vessels, and I would need to do some adjustments to make this fit together perfectly. But this could be a cool, it's kind of similar to the one that I had up on the board, a really cool picture form here. So you've got your spout over here, a belly that's doing something more exciting than just being like straight down, and then I have a really nice attachment point here for a nice elegant handle to come drape off of the top part and then go attach down here on this form. So you could build this out of stack forms. You don't necessarily have to have one huge cylinder, but that's kind of where we're starting. But you could do this to separate forms and then add them together. And if you had, say you were making a pitcher, that could be your pitcher, and then you could do something fun like these shapes for your mugs or the other curved one and add a handle, and then you'll have a matching set that all coordinate because you have similar design elements. So we're going to put this guy back to the side. Just got excited and went off on a tangent. Y'all know how I do. Okay, so we're going to use this one now. This is the sheild dart. Okay, I'm going to put this up on the top edge. And any of this, because I've not added any decorative elements yet that have like a clear top or bottom, I'm going to work on one side to start, but I can always flip this over and then add darts to the other side as well, and then I've got a darted top and bottom. Okay, so here's my sheild. This is the part I'm not keeping. Going to cut at an angle on the lines. Side 1 and side 2. All right, and then we're going to do score marks. vinegar. Okay. And then gently starting to push my walls together. And when you do this, some of the slip in the middle, that when you guys know that the vinegar, because it's an acid, it immediately starts breaking down the clay and it creates slip as you're going. So some of that vinegar in the slip will start coming out of the seam of the clay, and that's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll kind of help you to smooth this out when it does that. And then you can take your soft sponge or whatever to kind of soak up if you've got excess, so it's not just sitting there on the surface of your vessel. Okay, so hands first, fingers first to smooth it out, and then I like to go in with a rib or a sponge to refine the form. You can see where this would be a good technique if you were sculpting even like a face or a human figure, to notch out, start with a cylinder and start notching out shoulders or a neck. Same thing on the inside. Use your modeling tool or your finger or your rib to smooth over the seam, so that way the clay will want to dry together versus pulling apart as it dries. And then also in the firing. And then this one has a little bit of a corner on the inside right here, here, if you can see that, where it juts out on the outside. So I would do two things there to reinforce this. First, get a small tool where you can smooth into that small area, but then you can also take some of your excess clay and roll just a tiny little sphere of clay, shape it into sort of like a little teardrop form, and you would want to do some score marks in vinegar, but then push that little teardrop into that corner, and you can reinforce it, because that would be like a delicate area that might get bumped if this is a functional item. And then reinforcing it just a little bit, you don't want it to get too thick there, but just a little bit can help make it a little bit stronger. Okay, so then shape the outside. Okay, and so that is our shield. So your shield dart, shape that we cut out, and it creates this interesting angle right here. Okay, and out of the other side of this, I'm going to do an elongated triangle, but I'm going to do kind of what I want you guys to do on your paper maquettes, and then eventually on your actual vessels. And I'm going to have you play with the top, so the mouth, but also maybe play with the foot. Okay, so I'm going to take this and cut my elongated triangle out of this side, so that I can have the foot kind of taper in on this side. So same idea. Okay, and remember when we first started the presentation, I was talking about how all of the templates that I'm providing you with have these little dashed lines, just to kind of indicate, like, you don't have to go down that far on your vessel. You could go here or here or here or here and have a tiny little dart. Just kind of depends on what you're doing and what you want it to look like. So here's our space that we're going to get rid of. All right, I'm going to cut that away at an angle down to the point. Same thing over here. I'm going to cut down at an angle. Okay, so now I've got this area for elongated triangle. That's where I did my shield on the top on the other side. Same process, score marks, vinegar water, gently pushing walls together until they're matching up. Use your fingers to pinch the slabs together so they match. And the slip will kind of get squished out, and that's fine. And then you can smooth your clay, meld that over the seam. Use your rib to go over and refine the curve. I had a little bit of a bump down here, but I don't really want that. I know I don't, so I'm going to smooth that away. And now I've got this nice graceful curve. And then same thing on the inside. This would be a perfect time, since I'm on dart number 2, to get my modeling tool out and use that for smoothing. but I don't have one handy right next to me, so I'm going to try using the sculpting tool instead. And then flip. Same thing on the other side. You want to make sure that you really do blend these seams well, because when it dries, it will want to pop back open there if you didn't do a good job of attaching them. And use my rib, because this might be a functional item. We want to get rid of as much texture on the inside as possible. If this was a pitcher and we had, like, I don't know, hot chocolate or something in it, you will have things get caught in that clay texture in there if you don't smooth it out. And then before you know it, you've got like a little mold garden in here instead of a hot chocolate pitcher anymore, and that's kind of gross. Okay, so smooth that out. Okay, so now I have this kind of form, which is kind of cool. All right, so I could have it be this way. This is the way I had intended it to be, right here, like this. All right, so this could be the cutest little pitcher ever if I put like a little handle here, little graceful, like little sassy handle there. Okay, and then it's a little place where I could put like cream or sugar or whatever in it. You could make some cool funky mugs. You could make yourself a cool vase. Like I could have another triangular dart on this side right here, and then that would bring the wall back in this way if I just wanted this to be a funky vase and didn't want it to feel like it's tipping this way, like it's angled this way. But for your maquettes, for your sketch and your maquettes, I want you to attempt to use 3 to 4 darts. And I would like for you to try to do a combination of different shaped darts versus sticking with the same one. If you keep like a triangular dart and you just use 4 of it, it just looks like a coil pot that you went out and then you went back in, and it's very symmetrical and it's not funky at all like these are. So I want you to really play with the curves and the form that you can create out of this, and then you're going to be creating a paper form. Okay, so these are all the ones that we just tried, and I will take a picture of these when I stop recording this video, and have them all together so you can kind of look at all the different forms you can create. So this had 2 different darts on it, on this one. Okay, this one had 1. This one had 1 also, and this one also had 1. This one was the one with the leaf. Okay. So those are all our examples of the basic dart shapes and then what they look like when you're done. So what I'm going to have you guys do is you will, and let's get this facing the board again. You are going to take your paper that hopefully you were here Thursday and got in class, okay? And you're going to make a mock-up of this. I would highly suggest, in fact, do it. I'm not there to see you do it, but we're just going to believe that you are following directions, okay? That you are going to start off at this stage, all right? Sketch out more than one cylinder. The first one that you sketch, the first one that you make a maquette of, and the first one that you create with clay is probably not going to be the best one that you make, okay? Because you're just now starting this technique. But sketch out a bunch of cylinders and just try doing the side view and drawing those different darts on them and create these forms, and maybe add spouts and handles or feet or different decorative parts to the pots, and then see what you think you might like to do your maquette with. Because if you were here Thursday, you got 2 sheets of this paper and you're going to use half of it to make your maquette that you turn in. So that means you get 4 attempts, all right? And you might want all of those attempts, okay? So you've got this big paper. I would like for you to take this paper and fold it in half like this, okay? So hamburger style, not hot dog. All right? And you have a half sheet now. So this should be 12 by 18. The original is 18 by 24. You're using 12 by 18 rectangles, okay? We are going to take our 12 by 18 rectangles and we're going to roll them up to make a cylinder, all right? I'm using the tape to hold this still, but you guys really need that tape, especially if you don't have any tape at home. If you do, you're good. If you don't, you may want to take the tape off of your card and just tear off little bits of it to hold the cylinder, because you're going to be taking it apart and putting it together and taking it apart and putting it together. And you'll use all of these. Obviously, this is not clay, okay? Spoiler alert. So you're going to be using little pieces of tape to hold those negative spaces, to close those and bring the paper together, you'll use tape as your seam. So think of this as your score marks in your slip. All right. So this is our cylinder to start off with, our 12 by 18 cylinder rolled up. This is going to become a majestic vase or pitcher or whatever it is that you want to make. So what you're going to be doing is creating your own darts. You can just print off the ones that I put on It's Learning and use those. For this size vessel, they might be a little bit small. They won't be as dynamic on this size compared to the smaller ones that I was just showing you on camera. But you can take that template I gave you and then just use a ruler or eyeball it or whatever you can do with what you have and extend the lines out 1/2 inch or an inch or 1.5 inches. And then all of a sudden you're going to have the same shape, same proportions, but larger, okay? And then you can create a large, on here, like a large kite dart that you're cutting out of the side if you want to, all right? So I would highly encourage you, knowing that you have 4 sheets of this large paper, and it's going to be easier to deal with than trying to tape together a bunch of printer paper or whatever you have. I would sketch everything out, measure it twice, sketch it at least a couple times before you make cuts on the shapes, all right? If you have an X-Acto knife at home or something like that, or like a box cutter, you could use that. Do not do this on your mom's wooden kitchen table, all right? That is not part of this lesson plan. So you need to be thinking about what surface you're cutting this paper on, but it might be easier to cut it. It's not impossible to do it with scissors. It's not even that difficult, but it might be easier if you have an X-Acto knife to cut the shapes out. If you don't have an X-Acto knife though, say I want to put a leaf right here, and I want it to be like that little mini example. I want to have some space at the top and some space at the bottom, and I want the leaf to float in the middle. I would just draw it in the middle, and then I'd have to cut from the top, then cut the shape out, come back out of the top, and then I would have to tape that back closed. Okay, so it's not the end of the world. You can do that. So you're going to take your paper, and you are going to create your own darts using at least 3 to 4. I want you to create a dynamic vessel. This does not need to have a foot at this point, but your sketch should have some sort of foot and show what that vessel is going to be when it's finished. Okay, when you get to a point where you have a paper maquette that looks like what you think you want your actual ceramic form to look like in the future, I also want you to consider what kind of decorative techniques you're going to use on it. So we talked about that at the beginning, but just to kind of rehash it, you can do slip trailing, you can do carving, so subtractive, you could cut actual negative spaces away if you want to do that. You could do stenciling, you could hand paint with underglazes, you can of course do glaze layering, whatever kind of techniques you want to use, you can do that, and I would encourage you to try 2 to 3 different ones. So 12 by 18 paper maquette, you are going to do 3 to 4 different darts to alter your vessel, and then you need to think about what is the vessel going to become in all of its majestic beauty like this, okay? And then what kind of extras do you want to add in so that you have a nice ceramic vessel and not a paper cylinder with some shapes cut out of it. Okay, so this will be uploaded on the Google Slides presentation. You can watch this video as many times as you want because I know you miss me a lot at this point. And then I'll also have the dart document that you can print, or you can print it, you can enlarge it, you can make your own darts if you want to, and I'll also have some examples like the ones that I had up on the board that you can look at. And for sure, there's this thing called Google. And if you go and type in things like darted ceramic vessels, you'll get a lot of different examples of that. And also Pinterest is a really great resource too. If you've got internet access and you can do all that, which you do because we're here together, then you're going to be able to find a lot of inspirational images. You can have realistic imagery included. It can be about color and pattern and shape. But if you've got questions, let me know. At some point during this whole process, we'll have a Google Meet where we'll all just get together and have like a chat room. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to play Billie Eilish in the background, and you can meet my dog. What a time we're in, okay? So if you have questions about your designs, I would make more than one option, and then as always we can kind of meet and talk about them. You can show them when we get on live cameras and we're all together like a happy family again, and then you'll make your paper maquettes. When we get back in school, you'll roll out your clay cylinders and we'll actually start making them then. So let me know if you have questions. You can email me or send me an It's Learning message. I'll have 8 to 4 office hours just like during school, and you know I'll be on my computer at night too. So if you need me, let me know. I miss you, and I will see you when the coronavirus is gone.